Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Nick Hausman Show. And welcome back to another episode of the Nick Hausman Show. My name is Nick Hausman, and I am your host, as always, here to bring you some words of wisdom, some advice, some thoughts, whatever it may be that's on my brain. I'm going to send it out to you right now. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is a big episode number 6. We're moving closer to 10 now. We're a lot closer to 10 than we are to 1, so we're on our way. My guest this week is the owner of Blitz Pro Wrestling, a friend of mine, my former boss, and we'll get into why he hates that term in the interview. Tony Scarpone. He is a 14-year veteran of the Chicago pro wrestling scene. Not even the Chicago pro wrestling scene. He is a 14-year veteran of pro wrestling. Started in 1999, to this day, still running his own pro wrestling promotion. We're going to talk to him about what it is to run a company, some of the things that he likes about running a company. Also, we're going to talk about mainly his experiences, how he got into it, you know, who he's crossed along the way, who he crossed along the way that he liked, who he crossed along the way that he didn't like. I will say that there is at least one person in this interview, and I know I'm trying to clean up my language, but Tony refers to them as a midget fuckstick. So, you got that to look forward to. Who in your brain do you think could be that midget fuckstick? Ooh. Also, later in the show, after the outro that I do at the end, if you stick around just till the end of the last song, you're going to get a special overrun segment from myself and Darin Fentress talking for about 10-15 minutes about Night of Champions, the current state of pro wrestling, all that other type stuff. So basically, this is a pro wrestling heavy episode. Now, before I get into what I wanted to rant about at the top of the show, let's get some things out of the way. If you're listening to this show and you want to support me online, please do. Go over to facebook.com/Nick Hausman Show. Like me there. All those likes, they help my analytics look good, and I use those analytics to show to sponsors and things like that to try to get them to give me money. Nobody's done it yet, but we're getting closer, guys. The numbers are moving up. Also, if you want to find me on Twitter, if you want to go follow me on Twitter, it's at Nick Hausman Show. And I do a lot of Twitter activity. We're going to be doing some Twitter activity synopsis here at the end of the show, but that's not what we're going to be doing right now. And finally, YouTube, The Nick Hausman Show. Find me there. This will be episode number 6. So there's a lot of podcasts up on there. Still working on getting on Stitcher and iTunes. It's a little more complicated than I thought. You know, my buddy Toby Hope online, he said that he would start a podcast, but he feels like anybody today can do it. Any jamoke with a microphone could put together a podcast. I got news for you, Toby, and anybody else out there who thinks that. It's not so hard. I still got better equipment to buy. I still got better connections to make. I've still got a better way to distribute this show that I'm not doing it right now, but whatever. Screw it. One thing I want to talk about before I go on my official rant is the season premiere of Survivor started last night, Blood vs. Water. I am a huge Survivor fan. This season looks like it's going to be off the chain. Already, the first 10 minutes of the show, each tribe, they got a tribe of returning veterans, and then the other tribe is a tribe of siblings or people that are loved ones of those returning veterans, and they're going to be facing off against each other. I love this because even if you win and you beat the other team, you feel bad for winning because you may win fire or a tarp or rope or whatever, but you know that you're going back to your camp with that fire or water or rope or tarp or whatever, but the other guys, your loved one, your wife, your mom, your cousin, whoever it may be, your lover, they're going back to camp with nothing. They ain't got nothing. They're going back there, and they're going to suffer through the night. They're going to get bug bites. They ain't got no fire. They're going to be cold. They're shivering. It's wet. Anyway, first episode goes by, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the person who got voted off the island basically got voted off because their person that they're a sibling to, related to on the other team, was too braggadocious in the fact that they won. They were too boisterous, and their team got pissed at that guy. So they sent a message to that guy by voting off his significant other, his sibling. I don't want to say significant other. It's a great episode. It's a really good season to tune in. I'm going to be live tweeting Survivor most weeks at Nick Hausman Show. I encourage you to join in. It's one of my favorite shows. Hopefully, we'll get some people talking on the show, maybe a little bit of a bonus overrun where we talk just a little bit about Survivor. But here, let's get to the rant. And I'm not going to keep this long this week because I really do want to get this Tony interview. I really like this interview. I want to talk real fast about my choice to walk away from professional wrestling. And it's, maybe it's a break, maybe it's for good. Truthfully, in my heart, I don't know, guys. I really don't know. I'll tell you that I was working very hard for Blitz Pro Wrestling Blitz, whatever you want to call it, as their social media person, their media, marketing, sales, everything, day-to-day operations. I was the one handling those. I was the one handling that. And it was a lot of pressure, a lot of work. A lot of people say you can't make a living in independent pro wrestling, and I disagree. I spent my time working for Blitz, especially the last 8 months, as if it was a full-time job. I would wake up, I had newsletters to write, Twitter campaigns, Facebook campaigns, website development, all kinds of stuff, tagging pictures, staying in contact with possible sponsors, anything that basically day-to-day business of Blitz I was dealing with. And I was making some money for a while with Tony, enough to keep it worth my while. But towards the end, it wasn't enough to justify the time I was spent doing the job. And I'm not a guy that can sit around and just perform. I'm not a guy that can just show up and be Ronaldo Piven. If I know that I can be helping the company, if I know there's things that I can be doing, I've got to be doing those things. And the work that I was doing led to some big houses, some houses that Tony himself told me he was not expecting to get as big a crowds for some shows that just shouldn't have had that many people. It wasn't a big enough name. It was kind of a holiday weekend. It was a non-holiday weekend. It was rainy. It was whatever. We did well. The shows were all very profitable, except the Rock and Wrestling Rebellion, but we'll talk about that another time. Everything else was very smooth sailing. With that aside, I got tired of getting beat up. I'm 28 years old. I'm not 30, I know, but I'm 28. Now I'm looking down the line, and I'm saying to myself, Nick, you're already starting to feel stiff. You've taken choke slams. You got power bombed off a ladder. You've had guys punch you, slap you, give you black eyes. Is this where you want to be, in the next few years? And for me, no, personally. And I knew that I was probably not right for the business at the moment. I think it was the last show, maybe the second to last show I did, Rhino was on the show, and I love Rhino, ECW original Rhino. Really nice guy, really great guy. But he was facing Hardcore Craig at Blitz, and Craig he came up to me. I think the show had already started. We were getting towards the match, and he said, "You're going to take the gore, which is a spear or a 3-point stance, like a football tackle. Rhino's going to give you the gore through a table." Now, guys, I looked at Craig and I said, "No." Well, he goes, "What do you mean, no?" And I said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going through a table. I'm not getting fucking speared through a table." And he said, "Well, you got to tell Rhino." So I walked into the locker room where Rhino was standing, and I had to be like, "Hey, Terry, his name's Terry. Terry, I don't feel comfortable doing this. We're going to have to find somebody else to do it." And so he didn't have any heat about it. He was like, "Yeah, man, are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He's like, "Okay." And so Ryan Slade wound up taking the bump. Now, I think it's, if you get into pro wrestling, you got to know that you're going to be getting beat up. You're going to be getting hurt. I mean, look at Paul Heyman right now in WWE. He's getting beat up left and right. Or not actually left and right. They actually do a really good job of waiting to beat him up at very opportune moments. For the most part, he never really gets caught. And a good manager, if you're a good booker, should book a manager so that a manager does not get touched for a very long time. So that when somebody does finally get their hands on a manager, it means a lot. And I would, I would say that to other promotions who have not necessarily treated me the same, but sometimes I feel like it would be falling on deaf ears. So it was a combo of I was just burned out. I didn't want to take the bumps anymore. I didn't want to deal with the stress of it. And so I left. I walked away. Tony and I, obviously, we didn't end on, I think at the time there was some heat there, but we've moved on. There was some other mitigating factors that we had to deal through, and we dealt through it. And then this all built to today. This interview I did with Tony is the first time we've talked, actually, the first time Tony and I have talked over the phone in months and months and months. So with that all the way, let's get to it, guys. Let's get to the interview. Let's get to why you're tuning in. Tony Scarpone is the current owner of Blitz Pro Wrestling. He is the founder of AAW. He has worked for PCW. He has toured with the WWE. He has done it all. So right now, I'm going to kick it over to the host, Nick Hausman, with his interview with Tony Scarpone. Take it away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I am bringing on my friend, my former coworker, boss, whatever you like to call him, the owner of Blitz Pro Wrestling, Tony Scarpone. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the show today.
Hey, man, no problem. And I wouldn't say coworker, I'd say friend over everything.
Friend. Well, I mean, we worked side by side, Tony.
I mean, I didn't mean it. No, take the boss out of there. It was friend. It was friend and coworker. That's all we were.
Well, okay, coworkers, but let's be fair. You run Blitz. We were coworkers in Milwaukee because I was just your manager. There we were both just working for Dave Hero. He was the boss.
Yeah, I guess.
Now, why do you hate the term boss so much? Because you run the company, and this has nothing to do with what I was going to get into. But this is something I've always wondered. I know you hate the term boss. Why is that?
Because I've always hated my bosses.
Okay.
So I don't want to be a boss. I just want to be a friend and a coworker. I don't want to be a boss.
Sure. Well, that's fair. That makes sense. I mean, you've always kind of looked at, in my opinion, Blitz. It's more like it's a group of friends for you. I know it's your family works in it and everything like that, but it really has always been, I think, for you a little bit just a chance for you to be around people you like. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and sometimes people I don't like.
Sure. And hey, you know what? We can get into that later. I had planned on talking about Blitz way later in this conversation. I just, that's what comes up. So Tony, yeah, I got to start off by saying this show has really generated some interest from people. My shows typically, they've been doing all right, but I only have like 68 likes on my page, and over 200 people somehow found out about this show. And I'm getting comments from people from all sides asking me if I'm coming back to Blitz, asking me if we hate each other, if this is going to be volatile, what this is going to be. It's been very bizarre, Tony. I've never put up a guest that has gotten the kind of reaction as you. So,
well, I'll tell you right now. As soon as it went up, I had a couple of coworkers.
Okay.
Phone me right away and be like, "Is this true? Is this true? Please tell me I'm reading this wrong." I'm like, "No, you're not reading anything wrong." I'm like, "Going on Nick's show." They're like, "Well, why?" I'm like, "I don't hate the guy. I don't. It's not that we butted heads. We moved away, and that's it. It's not like we hate each other, or at least that's not how I seem it to be. And why not do it? What the hell?"
Yeah, exactly, man. Part of my reason for having you on is I personally, I hear this phrase a lot in my life that I really, really hate. It's the phrase burning bridges. And in my opinion, I don't think you can really ever burn a bridge. We definitely had a little bit of heat there for a little bit, but man, we like each other, and as long as we want to come together and do something, together, there's no reason we can't work together.
Absolutely.
I like you as a person, business-wise, whatever. We can get into it later if we want or not.
Right.
Exactly. This is not supposed to be a very intense. This is really, honestly, I wanted to bring you on, Tony, because you do have like a lot more experience in pro wrestling in this area, obviously, than a lot of other people, not just from a wrestling standpoint, but from a production standpoint, a producer standpoint. And I thought it would be very interesting for people to hear kind of a little bit of the path that you had taken to kind of get to where you are now, and maybe help other people in the path that they're on as well, or, at least maybe you say something to them that maybe they hadn't thought about. You know what I mean? That kind of deal?
Yeah, I understand. I like to, and you know this, and I like the theory of being above everybody else, and when somebody starts to catch up, well, I just pick up something new to do that maybe they won't catch up on in a little while. Back when I was with PCW, we had the big screen. Of course, LWF had it,
Sorry, guys. We lost you there for a second. Tony's connection got a little messed up.
How does that work, though? You just going to pick it back up?
Yeah, dude. I got editing software. I can do whatever I want. So you were saying that what you're playing with production as far as producing your show has always been is when you see somebody getting a leg up, you kind of take that idea and then you go a little bit beyond that. Is that the case?
Absolutely. And when you go to these other shows, you see people with karaoke machines and garbage bags as entranceways, or if, certain promotions had to call me up to borrow my stuff to make their shows look better. I kind of keep an eye on everybody around here. And yeah, when they're starting to catch up, but somebody's using the same DJ I am, well, now they're going to have the same, I'm going to have the same DJ, but I'm going to have a laser light show, or I'm going to have, a killer system. It just depends on what I want to do, and I got some tricks up my sleeve coming up here in the next couple months that, you know, people are going to have a long way to catch up on me production wise.
Well, that's good. I mean, it has always been really smart with the production stuff. I mean, to stay ahead of people. I'm also a huge advocate of production. I think that the setup you have in Joliet at St. Joe's Park is probably the best setup of any of the shows here in the Midwest, or at least around the Chicago area. But let's move back a little bit. Let's go back before all this stuff with Blitz and stuff. Now, first of all, let's start with this. Where did you grow up, Tony?
Oh, I grew up in the beautiful town of Berwyn.
Berwyn, Illinois. So you're a suburb kid. Now, when you were a kid, were you a kid that stayed out of trouble, or were you a kid that got into a lot of trouble?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, fair. Now, you don't have to answer all my questions. I'm just prodding.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, were you a sports kid? Did you do football, all that type of stuff? Because you're gigantic. You're a big man.
No, I played basketball throughout junior high and high school.
Okay. And do you think that got you competitive? Do you think that made you get that athletic bug then? Is that kind of where it all started?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, and just being out on the streets playing football with the guys, and always playing baseball and basketball. I mean, basketball is my dream, big thing. That's what I wanted to do, and I think that's where I got my competitiveness. I was being around all the guys in my old neighborhood, just playing basketball and trying to keep up with them.
Now, when you were a kid and all that, did you ever do theater? Because, I mean, pro wrestling, obviously, part athleticism, but the other part is theater. I mean, did you ever do any plays or anything like that?
No, I think I was just more of a class clown than a play type guy.
Okay. Now, at what point then did pro wrestling enter the equation? Did you grow up a pro wrestling fan and just always in the back of your head knew this is what you wanted to do, or was it something that kind of happened a little bit later, kind of happenstance-wise?
No, I watched it my whole life, and so as far as I can remember, and my two older brothers watched it all the time. My parents took us when I started going to wrestling when I was about 7 years old, 8 years old, and first time I heard and saw the Road Warriors, that was it. That's it. That got me hooked, and a couple years later, and kept watching.
Oh, you're busted up a little bit.
I kept watching it, and I seen a commercial for a wrestling company doing tryouts, and figured, hey, man, I've been watching it my whole life, and it's awesome, and I want to do it, so let's go try.
Now, you have a brother, obviously.
Which part did you hear me to?
Oh, no, that's fine. You're good. You only busted up for a second there. Now, you got a brother, Bob. Now, were you and Bob always practicing the wrestling stuff around the house? Were you always getting in trouble for that kind of stuff?
I don't necessarily practice. I mean, they beat the shit out of me all the time, him and my other brother.
Okay.
My brother Brian, he actually DDT'd me on the dining room floor. I'll never forget that. He's like, "Oh, let me
No, I lost you there for just a second.
try this move," and he never let go of my head. And I said my brother Brian did a shoot DDT on me in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always fun. So I wouldn't say we practiced, but I would definitely say that they beat the shit out of me all the time.
Now, okay, so at what point then did you say, I'm going to go and start training to be a pro wrestler, and where did you go to get your training from?
When I seen the LWF commercial, I think it was during Raw when I was 19. So 1999.
Okay.
And I saw a commercial that they were doing tryouts. And I went there and did the tryouts, and I'll never forget this. This guy by the name of Maverick pulled me to the side and asked me why I wanted to be a pro wrestler and this and that. And I told him, and he goes, what could you to the LWF, if you get hired? And I was stumped, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, man, I don't know. Oh, he goes, what my answer was? I'm like, what? He's like, I can bake a cake and I'll bring it in. And they loved it and they brought me in. I go, well, if that's the case, I know a pyro company that could bring pyro to the shows. And they're like, oh, perfect. You're hired. It was hilarious. And that was it.
And so LWF at the time was really hot. That was Billy Wack, who works for Blitz now. That was his fed. And so when you came in, was the Cabanas and the CM Punks and all those guys around at the time, or are they kind of come and gone already through the territory, or what was the feel of LWF at the time?
At the time, they were the hottest thing going on. I mean, they were drawing 900 people every show. I mean, it was ridiculous, the crowds they got, whether it was Bourbon Street or the Lamont Park District, or they were drawn and they were hot. But when I was there, CM Punk wasn't there at the time. Either was Colt. But towards the end, when I was leaving LWF and I knew I was leaving, that's when CM Punk and all those guys did an invasion angle and they all came back.
Now, how long did you spend training before they let you get into the ring? Hello?
That was part of the reason why I left. I was there roughly a year. I want to say a little bit more over a year. Did all the training, did all the setting up and taking down, and nobody ever took a chance and let me in the ring. I was in the ring once as a security guard against Ice Bew, and just ran in there, punched him, got chokeslammed. And nobody was ever really taking their time there with me. They were doing shows that were drawing huge crowds. They had other things, than to worry about some kid who, was just trying to get up on the business. And I'd recently left. I had left then, right after that, and I took some time off.
What did you take time off to do? Did you get injured, or was it just you chose to take time off?
No, I chose to take time off. I had a child, so I spent a lot of time with my kid. And no, it was a decision I made. I thought maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe they didn't see something in me. But then I had gotten contacted, I would say a couple months after that, by PCW to jump ship and go over there.
Now, PCW, that's is it Premier Championship Wrestling? Is that the right one, or which one is it?
No, it's Pro Championship Wrestling here in Chicago.
Okay, Pro Championship Wrestling. Now, when you got the call to make the jump, now what's that like when they call you and they say, "Hey, LWF isn't using you. We want you to come over here." Did they offer you money? Did they offer you a slot? I mean, what was that like with that first jump? Because LWF obviously had been your home since you started.
Right. It was. They were going to give me a spot. They were going to give me a spot right off the bat. It was, "Hey, you want to come over? We're going to put you in this angle. You need to come up with a name." They gave me that already. "Hey, come up with a name. And you're debuting at this day on this time, and you're doing this." So it was kind of like, oh, well, so somebody's seen something.
Did they give you the Tony Scarpone name, or?
No, I came up with it.
But what name did they give you?
They didn't. They told me to come up with one.
Oh, okay. So then you became Tony Scarpone. Now, this is your first real angle then, your first real run. What were you thinking? What were your thoughts? And kind of how did it go in PCW? Because I know that's not where you spent a majority of your time. But what was that first run like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was excitement. It was like, I told my girlfriend, "Oh my God, I'm debuting. And, we got to go." And it was at Wolf's Flea Market. I'll never forget. And and it was crowded, man. They had a lot of people there. They were coming up too, and they were doing pretty good. And I remember sitting in the crowd next to Frankie Rodriguez, and I didn't know Frankie. I didn't know anybody really in the business yet, and I was just bullshitting with Frankie the whole time, just talking. All of a sudden, it was my cue, and I ran in the ring and triple powerbombed the Butcher. And P.L. Myers raised my arm, and I looked down at Frankie, and he just had this look of shock on his face, like I was just sitting next to this guy, and next second he's in the ring, beating the shit out of Butcher. And it was a high life. I mean, that was great. Went in the back, met everybody, and
now
I actually didn't even meet anybody really. I talked to Butcher and P.L.
Are you talking? Who's the Butcher, by the way? It's not Abdullah the Butcher, is it?
No, that's his name. And that's his work name. His real name is Brian. He's the Butcher in PCW.
Okay. Now, who ran PCW at the time? Hello?
Oh my God, I don't even know. They had a committee of like 38 people.
Oh shit! Was that?
Did you hear that?
Now, yeah, I heard that. You got a committee of 38 people there. Now, was that easy to work with, or was it just a kind of a clusterfuck, or was there? I don't know. That's
it was kind of back in the day when you were a young guy. You didn't ask questions. You didn't do anything. You went there. You did what they told you. It's not like nowadays where these young kids come up and talk shit and want to be in major angles, and if they're not, they're going to jump to the next fed that's going to do it for them. And back then, you didn't say anything. You went there, you asked what you were doing that night, and you did it, and that was it. So for it to be a clusterfuck, I don't know, because, and especially back then too, you know, we weren't allowed to know the behind-the-scenes shit. We weren't allowed to know the booking team, and you know, we knew who they were, but we weren't allowed to put insight in on what we think we should do.
They never asked you at all, like, do you have any ideas for your character? You just showed up, put your head down, and did exactly what they told you to do, and that's what got you over with them. Is that pretty much the case?
That's pretty much what it was like that. You know, you came in. I mean, if you had something and you wanted to do something in your match or something like that, or you felt you could go one way with it, you could say it, but whether it was taken and used is a totally different story.
Well, you're still kind of like that today, because I've seen you both hire and fire people in my time knowing you, and your biggest pet peeve is usually people that kind of get a little bit of a big head of themselves, you know, and kind of, I don't want to say treat it like it's a real sport, but I think sometimes people forget that this is theater, you know, and it really, you know, it doesn't matter if you're in the main event or the opening match. Everybody's got a place on the show, you know. We're all trying to tell a story. I can definitely see how that's something that's definitely still resonated with you to this day. Now, how long were you at PCW then?
Man, I want to say 4 years ish.
Oh shit! That's a long time. Did they ever strap you?
Yeah, something like that. 3-4 years.
They ever strap you?
I was there a while. Yeah, I was there Midwest. And look, dude, and look at how fucked up this is. Okay. Like I was just saying about the people with the egos and the belts and this and that and wanting to be over, and like you just said, I was their Midwest champion for I don't know how long, a couple months, and I missed a flyering session because we used to all go flyer. All the boys had to go flyer on Saturday. I missed a flyering session, showed up to a show, and they stripped me of the title and kept me off the show for 6 months.
Oh, that's really shitty. What did you do for those 6 months then? Did you go work elsewhere, or did you just go back? Wow.
No, I just sat around and waited. That was my home at the time, and it wasn't like and back then there wasn't 3,800 feds within 5 feet of each other like there is today.
Yeah, there are a lot of feds.
There was MCW, which I don't even know how long he stuck around during PCW's days. There was PCW. There was Sam DeCero. That was it.
Now, who's Sam DeCero? Is he the PCW guy or different fed?
No, he's Windy. He was Windy City, but he's recently closed up shop.
Oh, that's right. So you never trained at Windy City, because Windy City was around that same time, wasn't it? They were still training people and doing stuff like that, weren't they?
Yeah. No, I never got a chance to work with Sam.
Did you want to work with DeCero or no?
I did. I heard things about him, and I wanted to check it out and see what it was like over there, but I just never crossed that path. I don't know why. I just never did.
Yeah, because I feel like everybody from kind of your era of coming up, most of them went through Windy City Wrestling, or the Windy City Fieldhouse, whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Right.
But that's kind of surprising to hear that. Now, when you leave PCW, is it on good terms? Is it on bad terms? What were the terms that you left this on to go to the next step of your life?
No, it was horrible terms.
Let's get into that, Tony. Let's fucking talk about that then. Like, what happens here for you to leave PCW and in such bad terms?
All right, I'll paint a picture. They all say they want out, this and that. They're tired of it. I said I'll buy it. Got together with my brothers who were going to put money in. I said, fuck it, I'm going to buy it. And went to the Christmas party. I forgot what year it was. And lo and behold, they all sold to Rick Knight. And they backdoored me and sold to Rick Knight. So when I sat there at this thing, after one bottle of tequila, I felt like, well, I don't want to fucking be here no more. So went up to John Burke and told him what I was doing. And they used to have a wall at their school that they called the Wall of Fame. And it was pictures of all the boys on the wall. And me and John didn't say nothing to anybody. We didn't say a word. This is just something me and him agreed upon doing. And drunk as hell. walked over to the wall and took our pictures down.
Cool.
And by the time we took our pictures down and started walking away, the whole locker room, minus 5 or 6 people, walked over that wall and took it down, looked at me and John and said, "We're going wherever you are." And that was it. I branched off, went and opened AEW in Berwyn, and yeah, that's where it went.
Now, is you and John, you say, opened AEW, is that right?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I put the money. John just sat there.
Now, you were going to buy a company. Now, you can tell me, you cannot tell me. How much were you prepared to pay to take over a wrestling company?
Oh, they weren't asking for much. I think it was only like $5,000 or something.
Okay, and with that, you would get like their I would guess the wrestlers, the ring, lights,
Right.
sound,
Right.
all that all comes with it.
Right.
That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't work out. That falls apart. You get Bischoffed. You got an offer on the table, and they don't want to take it. You know. So,
Yeah.
so you got Bischoffed, right? That's the right way to say that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you got Bischoffed, Time Warner, and all that. So you go to AEW. Now, the AEW story, now I've only kind of ever heard bits and pieces of exactly what happened here. So I'm very interested to kind of get into the AEW stuff. So you start AEW with this John guy. Let's talk about, because AEW is still a company that's in existence today, and you are not a part of that company.
Thank God.
Thank God. People need to know that. So what happens with you to set up this company? How was it? How was it setting up the company?
Oh, it was all right. I mean, back then we didn't, I don't know. It was just, it's a lot different than it is now setting up a company back then. But we came in, we did our thing. You know, John did the booking. I was the money guy who paid everything and everyone. And all of a sudden, I go to an Ian Rotten show, meet up with Jerry Lynn and Danny Daniels. That midget fuckstick, Danny Daniels. And bring him in. He starts booking for our shows. He starts doing stuff. Well, Frankie Rodriguez had helped me get Jim Lynam, who is Jim Jesus from the Man Cow show, or was. And then we got all the Man Cow. We got, you know, Turd, Freak, you know, Bass, all those guys. And we do all these big angles, and Jim Jesus is around. Well, I introduced Danny to Jim, and they become good friends. And me and Jim were real tight. I mean, I used to go to his house and have dinner, and you know, I'm breaking bread at his house, and we were tight. We went golfing all the time. I mean, we were close. And all of a sudden, him and the Weasel got close, and Danny whispered sweet nothings in his ear. And one night we went out for drinks at a Q101 event, and they sat down across the table from me and blatantly told me that they wanted to buy AEW, and that if I didn't sell it to them, that they were going to open up a company down the street and put me out of business. Now, this being two of my friends, mind you.
Why did they come to this conclusion? Had you guys had a fight before this?
No, there was nothing. There was nothing. They just thought they could run it better. You know, back at AEW, I mean, you could ask any of the originals. I mean, I packed that place. I mean, we literally packed that place 500 people every week, every month. I mean, it was getting packed. And then it started slowing down like every Fed does. Summer comes, you draw 200, you know, winter comes, you draw 500. It's the nature of the beast with this business. Mm-hmm. And they just felt they could run it better. And not only did they tell me that they wanted to buy it and put me out of business, but then they had the balls to tell me that, well, you could buy back in if you want.
Wait, they wanted you to sell them they wanted to buy the majority of the company and then allow you like to come in as a minority owner.
Right.
So the decision making gets taken away from you in the long run. Is basically
Exactly.
Okay.
And at that time, you know what? I was working for Harley Race a lot. I had started getting some, you know, a couple WWE things. Me and Robert Anthony were on the road a lot with Harley. And you know what? I said, fuck it, I'll sell it to him, and I sold it to him. I guess the real kicker of it all is you know, sitting across the table from your friends who you help not only how do I say this? From losing his marriage and his wife to helping him get jobs that paid him to do nothing. And then to get stabbed in the back like that. And people ask me why I'm still bitter with him. There's plenty of reasons.
Now let's back up just a second here. You mentioned two things that I wanted to hammer before we move on. First is Robert Ego Anthony, who's I know Rob very well. You know Rob very well. Now, when did you and Rob meet?
PCW, right when I started, he started a little while after me.
Okay. Now, have you been in the business longer than Rob then?
Yes.
Okay. So you and Rob leave PCW at the same time, I'm guessing, to go to
Mm-hmm.
AEW, correct? Right.
Yeah.
Now you say you two did some WWE stuff. Let's talk about that real fast because I don't think a lot of people know that you've done WWE stuff. What was it? How did it come up? And what was the experience like?
We got in a phone call from Harley, in his raspy voice. Hey guys, you're doing Kentucky and Omaha next week, so get ready. And it's like, oh shit. And he's like, oh yeah, get matching gear. Oh fuck. We had like 2 weeks or something. Like it was a ridiculous amount of time to get gear and get ready. And it was a blast, man. I mean, we did those. I can't remember all the towns, but I ended up doing it like 8 or 10 times. And then Ego obviously got signed. He did the Noah camp and got signed. Each experience was great. I mean, we got treated good. I believe a majority of being treated well there was because we had Harley Race behind us. Him putting his neck out for us and vouching for us. So I think we got treated maybe a little bit different. I don't know. But every experience was good. I mean, I didn't have a bad one. That's for sure.
Did you ever get to meet Vince McMahon?
Yeah. It was Kentucky or Omaha the first time we did it. And me and Rob were backstage talking with Ted DiBiase Sr. And this is what I always found cool. And I even tell like the names when they come in the story because they all say how Vince is an asshole. Well, I only seen him, twice or 3 times, but he was walking out from doing a hardcore match with Undertaker, and he's a bloody mess. And he walks right by us, and he thanks us for being there. And it was like crazy. It was like me and Rob looked at each other like, really, Vince McMahon stopped to thank us? Really? That's crazy.
Was he covered in blood when he's thanking you and all that?
Yeah, his fucking blood coming from his head. He's like, thank you guys. He stops and shakes our hand. He's like, thank you, thank you. And we're like, when we got in the car too, me and Rob were like, what the fuck just happened? Like, this guy full of blood stopping and thanking us. Yeah, he probably thought we were like Ted DiBiase Jr. and fucking Dustin Rhodes or something.
That's what I was thinking. He probably thought you were different people.
Right. Either way, I'm living with the gimmick of he shook our hand out of knowing who we were, and that's how I'm living with it.
Oh my god, that's so funny. He probably was so fucking out of it. He's like, I loved you guys at WrestleMania 3. You guys were great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's hilarious. Now, do you have any advice maybe to anyone who's trying to figure out a way to get that call to be on WWE TV or get on the road or anything like that?
You know what, man? It's the right place, the right time. I mean, and that's truly what I believe. I don't think I don't know. I mean, I don't think they really take the time to look at independence. I think it's just who you know and how you can get your name in there. And my advice here, you want my advice? My advice to everybody, and I just told somebody this the other day, go train with Harley Race. Take your trips out to Eldon, Missouri, 7-8 hours, get in good graces with Harley Race and his crew. Just that if you want to make a name and you want to get somewhere, I mean, Harley, people still look at Harley stuff. People go down to Harley shows to watch. Harley Race, he's got his camp coming up in September. It's a 5-day camp for $500, and you're doing it for Pro Wrestling Noah and for WWE Scouts. That's where you're going to get seen. I mean, that's where Ego and Keith got signed from, was doing that camp. So, if I could give any advice to anybody, it would be go find Harley Race's school in Eldon, Missouri. He's a World League Wrestling, and
and contact them.
Don't a few of the Blitz guys train with Harley right now? Aren't there a few guys in Blitz that are training with Harley? I want to say Brandon is or has.
I think he has. I don't know if anybody's actively working for Harley right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know Nick Cutler's doing the camp.
Okay.
Coming up in September. I know he's doing the camp. And I really haven't heard of anybody else doing it. But if anybody wants to make it and wants real advice, not only are you going to learn from one of the best in the business, Harley Race, but he's got the contacts and he's got the exposure.
Hey man, it's good advice. I'm glad that got out there because again, I'm hoping people listen to this. They listen to you, and maybe they've been asking themselves, I've been running my wheels the same way for a while now. What's something different I can do? That's definitely a very good option for them to consider. Is go down there and train with Harley.
Right.
Now, let's get back to AEW then. I just wanted to address that stuff because I know that you and Rob Ego remained close after AEW. Didn't you guys leave AEW at the same time? Am I correct? I know. Hey everybody, sorry about that. We had a little blurp again with the connection. But yeah, Tony, what I was getting at is the reason I brought up Ego is you and Ego left for AEW at the same time. You left AEW at the same time, correct?
No.
No?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say yeah. Rob got signed right after I had left. He had stayed there maybe a month or two, and then he had left for WWE.
Now, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but I've always heard a story about how there was something about the ring with you and Rob and AEW. I don't know what happened there. Is this something you want to talk about?
I don't even know what you're talking about. You mean there's a story about me in the ring at PCW?
I know you acquired a ring that I thought you thought was rightfully yours. That you needed to acquire this ring.
All right, sweet. The truth be told, you know what? Actually, part of this story that I'm about to tell is on Ego's shoot interview, Robert's shoot interview that's coming out in like 2 weeks. He tells it a little bit more detailed because I'm not as much of a dick as him. I had left. When I left PCW, it was me, actually Flyboy TK, and John Burke, but Flyboy wasn't in PCW at the time. He'd already left. So a certain somebody used to do credit card fraud with one of the workers and made that guy buy a ring. Well, that guy never got paid for his ring. His name was Pickle. We used to call him Pickle. I don't even know his real name.
Okay.
And so I had called Pickle up, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'll buy that ring off you since they never paid you for it. And he's like, well, rightfully it's mine. They never paid me. He's like, okay. So we took the ring, and we paid Pickle for his ring, $4,000, and it became my ring, or AEW's.
Now, how did you acquire this ring for AEW? Was this something that PCW knew was happening, or was this not something PCW knew was happening?
They knew about it.
Okay.
10 minutes after it was over.
10 minutes after, so you acquired this ring. And a ring is a hard thing to move. Like, a ring is many pieces. There's a lot of wood. There's a lot of steel. There's a lot of ropes. And so by the time that you have this ring, then you call them and let them know, we have acquired this ring. Is that the case?
Well, we didn't. Pickle did. Pickle actually said he was going to pick up the ring, and he was taking his stuff back.
That's very funny. I didn't know if that happened on your way out of AEW or into AEW, but I always loved that story of you just acquiring a wrestling ring.
I didn't really acquire it though. I mean, I paid for it.
You paid for it, yeah. No, but they, maybe didn't want you to have that ring. I don't know.
Maybe they didn't want me to have it. Yeah, that's maybe a chance, but yeah, I paid for it.
Exactly. It's one of those things that's only in pro wrestling. I feel like these type of stories can happen.
Right.
So you leave AEW, and we're actually we're almost out of time as far as like this interview goes, but we'll kind of get into this a little bit. You leave AEW. Do you start Blitz immediately after AEW, or do you wait a little bit?
No, I did like I said, I was doing a lot of stuff for Harley, so I was letting that all pan out. Okay. And then Ego and Keith had gotten signed, and then Danny and I spoke a little bit, and he's like, "Why don't you come back?" So I kind of went back as just a worker back to AEW.
Okay.
Was there about 4 months. About 6 months. Did the main event with Jay Ryan and Merrick Brave. Didn't feel like wrestling that night. Told Danny, I just seen my father in the hospital. I wasn't really digging it. I wasn't into the match. And I think I'm going to take some time off tonight. And he told me I couldn't. Did the match, and within the first 30 seconds, broke my leg in 3 places.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
What was the move? Was it something simple like you were just trying to do like a usual thing and broke your leg? What happened?
No, and it's something I did, a lot with ego. So I figured, this could work with this guy, and not thinking, and my head wasn't really all there. And Merrick's not that big of a guy and strong, but it's a monkey flip where I usually land on my feet. So he went to go give me a monkey flip out of the corner. I went to go land on my feet. Well, I over rotated and landed all my weight back on my right leg and broke it in 3 places. I ended up standing up on it and thought I just twisted my ankles because they both felt like they were broke. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. And the referee's like, just give me a minute. And Merrick went, come on. I went to go walk towards Merrick, and all the bones in my leg moved. And I rolled to the outside of the ring, and that was it.
Sorry about that, everyone. Tony's equipment, his Skype, he was Skyping from his phone, actually, which I've never done with anybody on this show. It cut out there at the very end, and we were just, it was time constraints, it was connections. We just couldn't get a good end to that interview. I thought it was a really fun, good interview, but it did just die right at the end there. I apologize. I also apologize to everyone out there who submitted questions for Tony to answer about Blitz, about Tony, about whatever. We're going to get to him next time I have Tony on the show. We're going to get those questions answered. He is agreed. He liked the interview. He's agreed to come back on in a few weeks and do another one. I told Tony that I want to talk to him more in the next interview about Blitz in general and other promotions. And he said that he was really excited about that because he's ready to start burying some people. So I cannot wait to hear this second interview when we do it down the road. All right. Now it's time for the part of the show. I mean, the interview's over. The overrun is going to be after the end of the show here. And so let's get to what happened in the world of the social media this week. I'll try to get through this in a timely fashion and not let this dibble-dabble. Dibble-dabble? Dibble-dabble. So I put up some pictures of Tony and I this week. A lot of people like that. Tony and I, when I announced the Tony and I interview, 176 people, or 179 people saw just that single post, and I've only got like 66 likes on my page. That's a lot of people that saw that post, and I really appreciate the interest. I live tweeted Raw, so I said over on Facebook. Really not too much about Facebook. I try to keep the Facebook stuff to the point. It's where I announce my interviews. It's when I announce when the interviews are coming out. If you're not on Facebook, you don't know those things. Let's pop over to Twitter now. Twitter's where a lot more interesting stuff usually happens. So, Twitter. Here we go. So, the last time we did one of these shows was... What's today? The 19th? Jeez. So, Sherman Edwards was on the road, and he found out... Sherman Edwards, obviously, from episode number 1, my first guest. He's on the road right now with Mission Improbable, and he's actually in town now for a few days doing a print ad. He's never in town really this long. And Sherman will be doing a print ad for L&M cigarettes, and I definitely want to talk to Sherman about his experience that where he's going to be a print ad model for L&M cigarettes. I think that's hilarious. So he tweeted a picture of me and him, and he's wearing his Virginia for Lovers shirt. I'm wearing my Price is Right shirt, and yeah, that was it. It was nice. It's a good picture. You should check it out. Next we have, by the way, just a lot of favorite tweets, a lot of new followers, a lot of new followers on Twitter. Precious is a cat. Talk to Precious again. I tweeted to Precious, give a dog a pillow and he'll take a nap. Give a cat a box. And then I put a picture up of Precious. What is Precious doing? Oh, the cow falls asleep in the box. I know, guys. I make it sound so interesting. Exposure for All. It's this thing that has like 400,000 likes or followers on Twitter. They retweeted me, so thanks to them. David Grooms and I started talking a little bit about the Triple H Scott Armstrong stuff. He said it's Hebner Jericho Part 2. Agreed. Sean O'Rourke tweeted in. He was talking to me about wanting to do a War Games match at Battleground between the Rhodes and the McMahons. I think that could happen. I'll talk to my buddy Darin Fentress about that in the Overrun. My buddy Matt Elfring. I put up a tweet. It said, "Remember to like me during the commercial break of Raw." He said I already did. Pay me, and I responded, "I will pay him 5 doll hairs." It's a Simpsons joke. A lot more favorite tweets. I did the Raw live tweeting for the first time on Nick Hausman Show, and man, people out there really like my funny Raw tweets. So definitely follow me on Monday nights if you're a wrestling fan. I got my 50th follower this week, and Matt Owens said that he would give advice to his 50th follower. So who was my 50th follower? Joshua Potter. So Joshua Potter. Court Bauer and I started talking. Court Bauer, the host of MLW Radio along Conan. Actually, I got Court Bauer and Conan talking to me on Twitter this week. I was commenting on how on MLW Radio, Conan was saying how Los Matadores, whatever you want to call them, are not real Mexicans. They're Puerto Ricans, and they're playing a Mexican gimmick. And once they're exposed as Puerto Ricans, the Mexican fans will turn on them, and they're going to get booed. And I said, Mexicans are not Puerto Ricans. Court Bauer said, we're going to need to show WWE a diagram about that. And Conan agreed with me, saying they will get booed. Virginia Tourism got back to Sherman and I from earlier in the week and said, nice shirt, in reference to Sherman's Virginia is for Lovers shirt. Sherman said he'd wear it more. And Malcolm West on Twitter asked me if I could ask Tony when he's going to have tag team titles at Blitz. I didn't ask it, Malcolm. Sorry, next show. And Toby Hope, one of the creative people for Blitz Pro Wrestling, he got angry because I actually told him that the Tony interview was going to go out Thursday at 9 a.m. I was wrong. Friday 9 a.m. And that pretty much wraps up all the Twitter and the Facebook stuff. I got through it a lot quicker this time. The last time I felt like I dragged my feet a little bit, but whatever. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the show this week. This is a real fun interview. Again, I encourage you to go over to Facebook, like me, facebook.com/Nick Hausman Show, Twitter @Nick Hausman Show. Go back and listen to some of the old interviews if you haven't, guys. I was sitting down listening to the Warren and the Kevin interviews again just to pass some time the other day, and they're good interviews, guys. There's some good interviews in there, and I really think you should take advantage of listening to some of these people's stories. Maybe you'll learn something. I know for sure in the Tony interview, I wanted him to talk about how other people that, they always ask, how do I get signed by the WWE? How do you do that? And he gave a really straightforward answer, I think, with that Harley Race Camp answer, and I hope a lot of you take him up on that and go do the Harley Race Camp and go try to get yourself signed. All right, guys. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Nick Hausman Show. Stick around after this song here at the end. We are going to do the Overrun with Darin and I talking pro wrestling. If you want to listen to that, you're more than welcome to. If not, you've been a great guest. You've been a great audience member. You've been beautiful. Please, talk to me on the internet. Let's get some things going. All right, guys, take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah, it's time to get a little bit of that overrun action in your life. Talk a little pro wrestling with Nick and Darin.
All right, sounds good.
And we are here with another episode of the Overrun. It's me, the guy you've been listening to for an hour now, Nick Hausman, and my friend Darin Fentress. Darin, welcome to another Overrun.
Thanks for having me, Nick. How you guys doing?
Everyone, well, me and all the people in the room with me, we're having a blast. It's me and my pillow and my bed, and I got my couch over here. Oh, 2 empty beer cans. Those are my friends too. It's good. How are you doing today, Darin? How's life? How's work? How's all this going for you?
Work's going well. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I've been losing at poker this week.
Yeah, I know. We played
Not so happy when you lose poker. I'm happy when I win poker.
I don't lose poker that much, man. You know me. I've been in the top 3 for the last 5 weeks, and I think I'm hitting a stride. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I walk in, and I have I've told you this. My whole thing with poker is I don't play real aggressively until the end because I let everybody else kind of weed themselves out, and more often than not, I'm low stack about halfway through the game. Would you say that's true?
That's a good strategy.
It's nice because
I
fold.
It's not a good strategy to be low stacked, but yes, I've seen you come back from immense odds.
Yes, well, again, it's just part of the plan, man. You sit around, you watch people, you throw some money out, and just hope for the best, And if I get an ace king, fuck it, I'm gonna play it. Sometimes I get a little bit more at the top, and then I just guard it. Let me mute my phone. Just made some sounds. So I just interviewed Tony Scarpone.
How'd that go?
It went really well. Tony and I had a great talk. We talked a lot about him kind of coming up, obviously. One thing that I thought was really interesting is I asked Tony how people that want to get signed by the WWE can get signed, and he very directly just said, Harley race camps, go there. They're about 7 hours away. They have tryouts where people from Pro Wrestling Noah, which is a big company in Japan, and WWE agents come regularly. And that's like the secret, I guess. Like a lot of people, I don't want to say waste time, but they spin their wheels running these territories. Why am I not getting the attention? Why am I not getting picked up? Blah, blah, blah. You got to be going to the right camps. The right people got to be seeing you. And Tony straight up just tells people, if you feel like you've got it, if you feel like you can make that next step, this is where you go. This is where you try out, and this is where people. This is where people get signed.
Well, I'm sure Tony wouldn't encourage everybody to do that, but certainly, yeah, if they're ready. Because if you look at Blitz, and you got a lot of great talent on that roster, and you also have a lot of growing talent too.
True.
Maybe not everybody's ready to make that move, and I imagine those camps they got to be expensive, yeah.
They can be. I know that they're a couple $100, but what's a couple $100 if you feel like this is going to open the door for you to make your living, your livelihood. It is kind of weird to me that you have to pay for these kinds of auditions because WWE does the same thing. You can actually pay. They don't do them as often as Harley Race does them, but you can actually pay.
Nick, you're starting to cut out a little bit. I don't know if that's going to be recorded or not, but you're starting to cut out a little bit.
I don't think that it will catch on my end. I think that the audio will still be fine because I've heard that in the past for people, and then I listened to it back. And it's fine. So unless it's so bad that you can't understand me, then just let it go.
Okay. All right. Cool, man.
Just let it go. But yeah, you can actually pay to go do that at the WWE, and it is kind of weird to me that you got to pay to audition like that because you don't see that a lot in the theater world. You don't see that a lot in especially improv. I guess actually, if you think about it, when you take IO classes. IO classes are, how much is it per session? It's, God, I never paid for classes, but it's like $350, $400 per session per 8-week cycle. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think it was, but yeah, it might be now. It wasn't quite that high when I went, but that was like 8 years ago.
Let's check this out real fast. I got a computer in front of me. IOChicago.com. I don't even know if that's the right. Let's see, Improv Olympic. Whoa. Okay. IO Theater Chicago. Classes, sign-ups. Yes. Do I want to learn to improvise? I do. How do I do this? I don't know, man. Okay, current schedule. Upcoming schedule. Holy shit, there's so many fucking classes now. Christ Jesus. How many fucking people
You could take just about anything, huh?
Holy shit, there's so many classes. They don't have any prices listed. Okay, here we go. Level 1 costs $280, and you get a copy of Truth and Comedy, which is nice.
Of course.
2, 3, 4, 4B, and 5 are $280, and then level 5B costs $280 and includes a run of performance. So it's $280 a class. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14. That's another 100 and no. Oh shit. Yeah, 150. So it's about $1,500 by the time you're done with all your classes, and then you have the chance of being put on a team, and you may not even get on a team. $1,500 to do that. I'd say that the few $100 to do a wrestling tryout. I mean,
that's over the course of a year.
Sure.
It's a year of training you're getting.
Sure, yeah, and I mean,
it's cheaper than a college class, but you don't get credits for it. You don't get college credits for it. I know because I tried.
You can get college credits for studying at Second City.
They're not accredited.
Second City's accredited. They have a deal with Columbia.
Oh, all right, cool.
Dree did that. That's how Dree and I actually. Dree is a girl I was seeing. She did the Second City program, and she did it for like a year, and she got a bunch of college credit for it through Columbia.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Their comedy program. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I could have done that post the fact after I went to Second City.
You could still do it. I mean, if you want to go to Columbia, I don't see why anybody'd stop you.
Yeah, I know. The world is my oyster.
I will say, as kind of a change of topics, Tony, a bunch of the other Blitz guys, it's really kind of crazy. A lot of them seem to think I'm coming back now just because I did this interview with Tony, including, from what I'm seeing in these text messages, Tony himself.
Well, they like seeing you and Tony, talking and interviewing. I mean, you guys had a falling out there for a while, and now you guys are, I mean, that's really cool.
We're talking, yeah, and I wanted to send a message, that there's a lot of rumors, I feel like, especially with me. I don't know what it is. It's been my whole life. People use the term burning bridges a lot with me, and I don't really see it as that. Maybe because
I don't think you burned any bridges with this one. You were professional. You were very professional.
But for the most part,
and you have professionals who are elite.
They are elite professionals, yes. But I mean, even in improv, I hear some of the craziest stories about me from other people that I guess they make their rounds is fact. Did you know, according to rumor, that I am banned from the IO Theater? Did you know that?
I did not know that. Wow. You burned that bridge too, huh?
That is a lie. I am not banned from the IO Theater. I am welcome at the IO Theater, but I choose not to go back there. I think some people that got upset that I refused to kiss ass and stick around and try to be put on another Herald team or whatever the fuck it, the Warren Phoenix Johnson method of staying at IO. Not that he's a kiss ass, but he does go to the classes and then back to the teams and stuff. I think people got upset about that, and I think they told people. Not Sharna never put this down, or Mike Click, or Balzer, or Baz, or any of these guys. Nobody up top ever told me I was banned. But I think some of the lessers may have come up with that. I think some of the lessers came up with that in an attempt to smear my good name. Jesus.
All these years later.
Yeah,
you still sound a little bitter, buddy.
I'm not bitter, Darin. It's funny. Do you know who Eric Lindbergh is? Eric, he's an ensemble member at Comedy Sports, and he works for Dave Gaudette directly at his Dave & Co. company. Anyway, I ran into him on the streets out front of my house while I was coming back from the grocery store before I did the interview, and he was happy to see me, and I asked him if he'd do the podcast at some point, because he's an interesting cat too, and he said absolutely. And it's just so funny to me, there's so many more rumors about me than I feel like are truths. Like, a lot of people, I think,
sure.
I don't know. I don't know. What are we even talking? Why are we even talking? This is supposed to be the wrestling part of the show. We've talked for 10 minutes now about not wrestling. Do we even want to talk wrestling in this overrun?
It's up to you, buddy. I mean, the overrun, it's your show. I guess the overrun is whatever you want to make it.
It's true. Let's talk a little wrestling then, at least.
Sure, absolutely.
We kind of talked wrestling. We talked about Tony and Blitz and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, that's wrestling.
That's wrestling adjacent. That's wrestling adjacent.
Let's talk. The creme de la creme of pro wrestling.
You want to
talk the WWE?
Now, we could talk WWE real fast. Let's talk about Night of Champions and Daniel Bryan. They gave Daniel Bryan the title with the ref doing the fast count at the end of the pay-per-view, and the announcers didn't mention it, and I feel like the crowd was confused. because they wanted to celebrate Daniel Bryan's victory.
They did celebrate. Everyone celebrated, but the crowd knew that it was a fast count.
It was hollow.
But for one solid day, Daniel Bryan's walking around with that belt. He is the champion. We'll find out what's going to happen on Raw, right?
Well, but this celebration,
it's going to make you tune in.
This celebration was not like the John Cena because he beat Cena clean with a fair 3 count, and everyone was like, yes, Daniel Bryan, legitimate wrestler, beat the legitimate top guy in a legitimate fashion, so we can be happy about this. And then they took it away moments later with Randy Orton. But this one, it just, as soon as I saw it, I wanted to be happy, but I knew in my cockles that they were going to take that belt off him the next day.
Exactly. Yeah. I could see that coming, and it. Yeah, we got that celebration that night, and I couldn't believe they ended the show with that. I expected Triple H to come out right then and there and just throw a hissy fit. But the top of Monday Night Raw, less than 24 hours later, he strips the belt of Daniel Bryan. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's also kind of fun the way they did it. But at the same time, I'm like, Triple H is going to great lengths. To me, the way the storyline goes is, Scott Thompson said in the ring, "Oh, he's on to us."
Scott Armstrong.
What?
Scott Armstrong. His name's
Scott Armstrong. Yeah. Right. Road Dogg's cousin, brother.
It's his brother.
Yeah.
Now, but then later in the show, Triple H fires Scott Armstrong for doing what I'm sure that they were in collusion to do from the get-go. And what a dick move. What a dick move on his part. It's like, hey, thanks for helping me out, but I got to save face here, so we're going to fire you. We're going to give you this incentive package. We're going to take care of you for the rest of your life. To me, it almost felt like they were using Scott Armstrong as a metaphor for Jim Ross, because I think that what Triple H said to Scott Armstrong right there is exactly what Vince McMahon said to Jim Ross when they let him go.
Okay. I mean, I'm not as abreast on that as you are.
Oh, well, did you, because you saw JR retired. Yeah, you saw that?
Yeah, but I didn't know that there was a lot of animosity there or something going on there.
Well, what happened at at SummerSlam weekend, they did the WWE 2K14 panel, 2014 panel for the new video game, and they got Daniel Bryan, Ric Flair, Steve Austin.
I'm
Paul
excited
Heyman.
for the new game. I am.
Yeah, Paul Heyman and Jim Ross all in this panel. A bunch of big names talking about the new video game, okay? Well, Ric Flair shows up hammered to this symposium. And
why
I mean,
not?
again, sure, yeah. I mean, you're just debuting, the biggest video game of, the only video game for your company for the entire year, and you're sitting alongside.
But you're Ric Flair, but we expect that of you.
Sure, it's right. But again, Ric Flair, Steve Austin, Paul Heyman, Jim Ross, and Daniel Bryan. I mean, these are big names. And so I guess what happened was, I think Jim Ross supposedly had also been drinking a little bit with Rick before the panel, and Ric Flair became Ric Flair and went into business for himself and basically hijacked this WWE panel and just was telling stories about how before John Cena met Flair, he didn't drink, and now that he's friends with Ric Flair, he drinks a 6-pack every night. And you can just see Vince in the back like, fucking Rick, you're not supposed to say that. It's John fucking Cena. You don't say Cena's a fucking late night alcoholic now because you hang out with him. That's bad. Bad for business. Also, Ric Flair started talking about Reed Flair's son who passed away from heroin, which is a little heavy for a video game panel. A little heavy. So what happened was Jim Ross was responsible for this panel, and since it got out of control, Vince McMahon put the heat on Jim, saying that if he'd have done his job, this stuff wouldn't have happened and gotten out of control. And they were going to put Flair on SummerSlam. I remember hearing that, and then they pulled Flair from SummerSlam. And then, like a week ago, Vince and JR finally sat down, and Vince said, look, we got to do something. I mean, this panel on our end was a mess. Believe it or not, the video game people loved the panel. They thought it was great. But sure. Vince hated it. And so somebody's got to burn. So instead of straight out firing Jim Ross, they retired Jim Ross. They try to make it sound like it's 20 years in the WWE. We're going to let him go graciously. We're giving him a great severance package. All the same shit that Triple H said to Scott Armstrong. And that was that. I mean, Jim Ross is a free agent now, but it's just kind of shitty to see that this man's entire career ended over one fucking drunk Ric Flair panel. That seems kind of shitty.
Yeah, but at the same time, he did say, "I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you." This isn't the last we're going to see of Scott Armstrong, which makes me say this isn't the last we're going to see of Jim Ross either. I mean, they had to fire Daniel Bryan for a month because he choked Justin Roberts.
Well, they fired Finlay.
They brought him right back.
Yeah, and they fired Finlay because he had The Miz come out and talk over the national anthem at a house show. And then they brought Finlay back. He's back on the road now with him, too. It's not uncommon, but it's
So are they testing Miz as a heel because his face thing isn't going over as well as they wanted?
Oh, that was a while ago. That was a while ago. That was...
Because they seem committed to Miz being a face for the time being.
He's doing slightly better, I want to say. I think
as we continue, I'm getting more and more into when we do the Miz TV. I'm more excited about that now than I was when they first reintroduced him as a face.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know, Miz. You know what I did like about the Miz this week is did you see Miz's dad?
Yeah. Was that his real parents in Cleveland when they were fighting there?
I gotta guess, man. I mean, his mom was crying for real because, I mean, Randy Orton put that steel chair around his neck and then dropped the knee on it, I mean, my mom freaked out.
It looked sick. It looked pretty sick.
It did. And like,
but I trust these two as workers enough to be able to pull off a spot like that and not seriously injure somebody.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't want to give away the magician's secrets, but it's not actually that difficult to drop a knee like that and not hurt somebody. But the mom was legitimately crying, and Miz's dad. I mean, if you're gonna cast Miz's dad, I don't think you cast that guy. That guy looked like he was selling pop brownies before the show, like he was, traveling with the Grateful Dead back in.
So then it makes you believe that those are his actual parents.
Absolutely. I think those are his real parents, and they were in Cleveland, where he's from. So
I'm sure it's on Wikipedia by now, and it'll be truthful.
Sure, but yeah, that was about what I thought of that. And actually, that's there's not too much right now going on. I heard tonight on Impact that Dixie Carter turned heel. Have you seen this?
Oh, really? No, I have not seen. No, the one that just aired here 2 hours ago. I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's on my DVR. I plan to watch it.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, there is a Dixie heel turn in this episode. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Sure. Great.
Are we grasping at straws now? Is that what we're doing?
Believe it or not, I was following Twitter at around 10 o'clock when I was editing together the Tony interview, and people said it was good. People said it was like, I don't want to I know you don't like spoilers, so I don't want to give away what happened, but people were saying that it at least was interesting. So I'm willing to give it a shot. But
all right, cool. Well, I mean, I can see, I haven't read the spoilers, but I mean, the way AJ was talking last week, I have to assume it has to do with him and the big bombshell he promised to drop this week. But yeah, don't give anything away. Don't give anything away. But yeah, that's where I think it's going, of course.
I won't give anything away. All right. Well, believe it or not, we've been talking for like 20 fucking minutes, Darin. So I'm just gonna go ahead and call this one. This was kind of a.
All right. Well, yeah. This is a lengthy overrun, huh? We were all over the place.
This was very surreal. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've just been talking for so much into this microphone today, but this was very surreal. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to plug? You got anything you want to plug?
No, man. You can plug it away.
Sure. Facebook.com/Nick Hausman Show, at Nick Hausman Show on Twitter. And next week, I'm gonna try to get Susan Messing as my guest. So I'm thinking about her. I wrote Mike Bucci a Facebook message. He was Simon Dean in WWE. He was also an agent backstage, so I'd kind of like to talk to him. I don't know. That's about it. That's everything.
Cool.
I'm gonna put this into the final edit, and I'm gonna render it, and I'm gonna come hang out with you guys for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go to bed. So.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you in a little bit, and then if I forget to tell you later, good night.
Oh, thanks, buddy. All right. Well, I will talk to you later, and thank you, everyone, for listening to the Overrun. Take care.